Hey everyone, my name is Matt Romanchik, and I am the founder and host of The Conscious Vibe. In this podcast, I would like to discuss the intersections between spirituality, wisdom, science, everyday life, health, art, music, really anything that's inspiring to other people. At the end of the day, it's about how we can all be better people. I would like to welcome you to this conscious earth. Shout out to John Arn for that awesome opening track. Thank you for submitting that. For that and all the other music featured on this podcast, you can search The Conscious Vibe on YouTube and SoundCloud, and you'll hear all of that. If you would like your music to be featured on the show, just shoot me an email at theconsciousvibe@gmail.com. This is part 2 of the interview with shamanic practitioner Alvaro Romao. To hear the introduction to the discussion, check out part 1. This episode is sponsored by Burke Superfoods and Burke and Lucky Chewy Yoga Clothing. Burke Superfoods, nourishment for the spiritual warrior. So let's talk about plant medicine, because that's a big part of shamanism, and I know a lot of people are interested in that. And now for plant medicine, we were talking about things like psilocybin and ayahuasca, indigenous psychoactive plants that are used in ceremonial aspects, right?
Ayahuasca and San Pedro.
San Pedro, right, okay.
Or Wachuma is the medicine term for it. Ayahuasca is a wonderful plant medicine that I have worked with many, many times.
I'm curious as to how the introduction for that was, because ayahuasca can be really, really rough if you're not used to it.
Have you worked with ayahuasca?
I've done it once, yes. But my story is a little bit... It's a very, very long story that I won't get into now. But essentially, it was... I've known a lot about it, and I've read a lot about it. I've known people who have done it, and I always told myself that if the opportunity ever came up, I would do it in Peru, in a proper ceremony, the way it's traditionally meant to be done, with respect for the medicine and its culture. But I was in a very bad place when I did it, and just sort of seeking any sort of thing that would fix it, and somebody convinced me to do it on kind of a whim. In
my opinion, I've never worked with a medicine on our soil here in the United States. I refuse to. I've had many opportunities over the years, and with amazing medicine people that I respect, but there's just something about traveling to Peru and being on her land.
Yes.
To receive this medicine, that's where I feel comfortable doing this.
It's a very special and powerful thing that I think we can't possibly respect enough. Not even just that, but just nature as a whole and all the gifts that she really gives.
There's so much preparation that a person needs to go through in order to have this relationship with this plant.
Yes.
A lot of these places here, they're like, okay, you fast for 24 hours, don't eat this, don't eat that for a day or two, come drink medicine and get back in your car the next day, and we're going to thrust you into traffic and everyday life. That really it can really damage a person.
Well, what was even worse was I knew I was fully aware of all the preparation that was supposed to be involved, and I disregarded it anyway. I mean, I didn't fast. I drank alcohol, and what's funny is like I don't drink like very much ever, but I did that week, and then I engaged in sexual activity that same week. Like everything they said not to do, and I just went in guns blazing, and then I feel like one of the big principal lessons of that experience was just how much arrogance I was exuding into the world, and how I was paying for it.
And I've had many people over the years have that very similar experiences. A very common phone call that I get from people is they're like, hey, I worked with ayahuasca in a yoga studio, and now I'm feeling like I'm losing my mind.
That was basically me.
And that's a very common conversation that I have with people, and they, and then they'll come to, see me for whatever guidance or healing that I can help them to get through that. But with working with Madre, we like to refer to her as Madre, on her land, and if you can find the time to go to, say, Peru for, say, 2 weeks to really immerse yourself in that culture, in that medicine, in the love that's created in that environment, and the safety. There's no television, there's no radio, there's no stimulation, there's no excitement. It's just you are communing with this plant for your own journey and your own personal healing. In my opinion, that's the way it should be done.
That's the great discovery. You see? We're really unimportant after all.
So for people who don't know, what exactly is ayahuasca? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, ayahuasca is a vine. It's a plant that on its own does absolutely nothing to you. You can brew it, you can eat it, you can drink it, and you're going to feel nothing. The only way that the medicine works is when you combine it with another plant, which is called the chacruna plant. And the two mixed together bring you to that powerful place. It is created by an ayahuasquero and brewed into a tea. It takes, depends on the strength of that particular brew, but anywhere from 20 minutes to 40 minutes for it to start its process with you, which could last maybe 4, 5, 6 hours that you are going through pain and pleasure.
Wow. I mean, it lasted a lot longer for me, but I also did it twice in one night, so.
Out of all the times I've worked with it, most of the time I have to drink 2 or 3 times throughout the night to receive the full effects.
So why do they call it medicine?
Because that's what it is. Whether you are working with Palo Santo, or you're working with coca leaves, or you're working with the chonta plant, or munya munya, these are all different, not hallucinogenic. Mm-hmm. Some are teas, some are medicinal, but they're all medicine. And this particular type of medicine is some of the most powerful in the world as far as helping a person to go deep within your soul to heal some dark places within yourself. It can help a person with anything. The way I like to look at ayahuasca is take a chalkboard and you write up on this chalkboard all the different things in your life that you have struggled with. Pain, fears, addictions, whatever it may be. And you can do a ceremony, and you don't always know really what is going to be erased off of that chalkboard. You always go into these ceremonies with intent and feeling like, hey, this is what I want to work on, but it's not always what she has in store for you. And then after a ceremony, you can go up to that chalkboard and you can erase something. You don't erase the memory of it, but you erase the attachment. You erase the emotional feeling that may be associated with that pain of something in your life. Pretty miraculous of how it works. Very powerful.
I'm just reminiscing on my experience right now and how I was not able to erase within one night. It was like a process that took me like 8 months.
The healing never stops, and it could take 8 months. It could take, years, but it starts. You have the work. It's not a magic tea that you drink that's going to do it for you, because it's a partnership. A lot of people have a misconception that they're going to go to Peru, drink ayahuasca, and have this miraculous healing and not have to deal with their own shit. It's also the period after can be challenging within your life to confront it and move through it. I like to go into the pain. I like to go into the discomfort. I like to hit it head on and not run away from the darkness.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
If you run away from it, it's just going to make the healing even worse.
Yes.
To answer a question that you kind of said earlier, I think that anybody who's on this journey and this path of being a shamanic practitioner should at least once in their life work with this medicine, because it can catapult you into places of the spirit world that you really can't access without. And it gives you a good navigation of that world that I think is extremely important for a practitioner to experience, so they can really understand, all right, this is really what the spirit world is, not, what a drum is going to do for me. Yeah, a drum can help you alter your mind a little bit to go somewhere within the spirit world, but these different types of medicines are an initiation, in my opinion, for people who practice this work and people who don't practice this work.
Now, you said madre, which means mother, and people refer to her often as grandmother ayahuasca, or just grandmother, or mother
Correct.
Aya, which generally means like people do perceive there to be a spirit, so to speak, that communicates through the medicine that you can hear and speak to when you're on it. For myself, I see it as like an aspect of Mother Nature, and how the principal goal of ayahuasca is really to get us back to nature so we can help the planet again, because it's so obvious how much trouble she's in. It's like I walk outside and you can pretty much hear her crying every day due to what's going on in the world.
Absolutely.
And so I think that the healing is removing the aspects of ourself that are holding us back from doing that, from getting back in touch with nature and actually being one with the planet, being one of her children. And that's ultimately, at the end of the experience, or when I accepted the experience, because I had very much difficulty with that, accepting that it was really our place to become part of the children of the earth. To join the rest of the species who've been here for millions of years, doing a good job. Do a way better job than we are. And to find that respect again within ourselves. And, I think that's ultimately what she's really able to do, is to help people who have lost their way find that respect within themselves again, for not only Mother Nature, but themselves. Be able to find your own self-respect.
I 100% agree with you, because if you can't respect yourself, how are you going to respect the earth?
Exactly.
By honoring and working with yourself and respecting yourself brings forth this understanding of, oh my God, these beautiful plants and trees and rocks and waters that are living side by side with us that I'm not paying attention to, I'm not honoring.
Yeah, not paying attention. I say to people, if you want to help the world, literally start by helping the first tree you see when you walk out your door.
Absolutely. And so a lot of people have the misconception that, oh, what am I going to do? What is my contribution really going to do with these billions of people that live in this world? But it all makes a difference. And so many people are being guided to work with this type of plant and these different medicines and are having these awakenings and having these experiences of being one with the spirit of a plant and nature. So many people that I know have one way of life before and another way of life after, where they like, okay, you know, I would throw this bottle in the street, but now I'm going to recycle it.
Yes.
I know that ayahuasca tourism has become very popular over the past, say, 5-6 years, and it's become very popular with a lot of people around the world, just not Americans. And I'm kind of on the fence with it. I think it's a great thing, but also it depends on the intentions behind the person giving the medicine, because so many people are having this, great experience and these awakenings to helping the earth and helping themselves. So to that aspect of people working with grandmother is a beautiful thing, because it is awakening so many people to the planet.
Yeah, and we need that more than ever.
Absolutely.
When I had that experience, one of the most difficult things to deal with was grandmother essentially pointing out my own ego to me. Long story short, I was able to see very quickly the manifestation of all the negativity I was being fed throughout my life. Partially my attitude, partially from other people, from culture, from just, I think it stemmed even beyond like childhood, like into family history, and just how much that attitude, which was largely just negative and just creating this sense of I'm above everyone else, I'm above the world, and like how much that was not just hurting me, but I saw how it was hurting everyone I knew. My parents, my family, my ex-girlfriend, my roommates, other people, how it was, and then how on a larger scale that sort of thing just hurts everything. And I had a really difficult time coming to terms with that, because I felt like I had identified with that side of myself for so long that I felt like what I was experiencing on the medicine and continuing to experience afterwards was some sort of trick. Because that side of myself, while in that state of mind, I experienced it as a physical thing. It's like you said, it's one thing to work with spirits, it's another to like actually be there. And seeing that side of myself as this thing, and it trying to convince me the whole time that Mother Ayahuasca was doing something, was it demonic or evil, and trying to trick me and make me insane. And that was like really, I think that idea was what made me more insane. And so like when people have fears going into something like this, how do you know when you're ready, and how do you assure people that they can be okay? Because I have seen some people have very difficult experiences, or even just like, let's say with psychedelics in general. Friends of mine, people I know have either gone insane or just they end up much worse off. And it's like you said, when it's one thing to be trained into it with an ayahuasquero you trust, but it's another to just when you're talking about tourism, ayahuasca tourism, there's a lot of people who are fakes, pretending to be curanderos. I've even heard of, like black magic being used. So how do you steer away from all the darkness and towards the beautiful side of it?
First, like I was saying earlier, with just practicing shamanism as a calling. And it's the same thing with this type of medicine. Like my partner was working with ayahuasca for quite a number of years before I did. He would go to Peru by himself and he would work with this and come back and go through, the months and so on and so forth. And I wasn't being called to it. We have a really good boundary system within us of, we don't push each other. And he would just be like, hey, if you ever want to come. So for a couple years, I would just kind of was like, nah. And then I had a dream and I woke up that morning and I'm like, she came to me and it felt so strong that I knew that I needed to go and work with her. And that was the green light for me to pursue that. And a lot of people are like, hey, there's this ceremony going on in my town, and yeah, I've always kind of wanted to work with this, so I'm going to go do it. You have to have a tremendous amount of respect for her. And one of the key things that I like to tell people is, are you looking at this as medicine or are you looking at this as a drug? If you're approaching this from a scientific aspect and DMT and all of that, you're coming from the wrong place.
Yeah.
If you can approach this and bring yourself to that understanding that this is medicine, you're going to have a different experience than if you're going to work with this medicine and refer to it as DMT or a trip or something, a psychedelic.
Right.
That's the wrong way to look at it. And people who are on that side of it usually wind up having a very difficult experience. As far as your other question is, do your research, man. Everybody out there, anybody who's listening to this podcast, do your research on who is going to administer this medicine to you. I would suggest that if someone is telling you that they worked with somebody and giving you that referral, that's the person to go to. Do your research, ask people, find out, because there is a lot of people who are calling themselves curanderos and ayahuasqueros and shamans, and just to make a quick buck. I mean, I'm not going to get into it, but I've heard massive amounts of horror stories from many people about experiences that they've had with phony shamans. So really do your research, read reviews. If you see someone who is writing, who's experienced working with that particular person, email them, ask them, tell me, can you tell me everything about, not your experience, right, but about this medicine person. I mean, my shaman that I work with, unfortunately, he's not doing ceremony right now because he's very ill, but I know of many people that I would refer people to. I don't go to the jungles, I go to the Andes. I work with the medicine in the Pisac area of Peru, which is in the mountains.
That's probably very beautiful.
It's absolutely stunning. It's absolutely beautiful. It's very powerful. To anybody looking to work with this, really do your research. That's what it boils down to. Just because you Google somebody and they're running a retreat for a very affordable price, doesn't mean you got to do it.
And respect it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big deal. It's not just something you run into.
I mean, when I'm, say I'm going to Peru, I'm preparing for 30 days before I go, doing a dieta on a mental, a physical, emotional aspect of it.
30 days.
30 days is how I prepare for the medicine. Does everybody have to prepare that long? No. It's just what I have found really works for me. Like when we bring people to Peru, we do preparation classes, get-togethers with anybody who's coming with us to prepare you spiritually for this. We talk about the diet, we talk about the abstinence and everything else. And then we also do integration upon return. We'll do 2 or 3 different types of integration for the people that we brought so that they can integrate back into their lives properly. That's something that isn't offered very often here in the States is, okay, now you're back. How do you deal with this?
Yeah, I know the diet, it's like largely vegan, light foods, and they recommend absolutely no alcohol or intoxicants at all. Sexual abstinence. I'm not sure what else goes into it, but it's kind of a big deal for people who aren't used to that sort of thing.
Media is also a big part of this.
I think that counts as an intoxicant.
I mean, it's very difficult for people to turn off these days, but for myself, other than email, that is the only form of technology that I will pursue just for communication purposes. But I don't watch television, I don't listen to the radio.
You're saying in general or on the diet?
On the diet.
Okay. Wow.
Because the last thing that I want is when I'm in ceremony for a jingle of a television show or a pop song, really seriously, to pop into your head, because it could be traumatizing. I want to go into this work and this ceremony as clear-headed as possible, where nothing is coming into my mind. Nothing about life, no problems, nothing about social media, politics, nothing. I just want to be as clear as possible so that I could do the work.
Right. It's like actually being with her. You wouldn't watch a football game while you're on a date with your wife.
I hope not.
Chances are there are probably a lot of people who are, teenagers, early 20s, who are going to be listening to this. People who are in high school or college trying to figure out their place in the world and who care about these sort of things. They really either care about wildlife or the environment or making some sort of difference in the world. How can you recommend those people get more in touch with that side of things, get more in touch with nature, whatever way it might be? I mean, I'm sure not everyone's called to be a shaman. How does the average person get more in touch with nature and make some sort of difference?
Well, one thing that I've noticed over, maybe the past, I don't know, however many years, 5 to 10 years, is the openness to the younger generation with their spiritual awakenings. I think it's absolutely beautiful, because so many people really don't find this path or this alternative spiritual practice or whatever it is whatever journey they're on until later in life. And I'm finding all these young people that are being guided to me for whatever the purpose is, who are in their late teens, early 20s. And I just think it's absolutely amazing that they're starting their life at such a young age to figure out, all right, what does this all mean? And I think a lot of people are questioning religion, so they are looking for something else to believe in. If you feel the calling, do the research. Find a teacher, find a mentor. If you live in an area that has a lot of different workshops and classes, and take them. Really expose yourself to as much as you possibly can. That's really the way to do it. Pursuing anything is a partnership. It's not going to happen miraculously to you sitting in your living room. You got to make an effort to seek it out, because one door is going to open another. So if you go to a yoga studio and if they're having a class on this or whatever it may be, yeah, that class may not give you the awakening you're looking for, but it might open another door or introduce you to a new person or give you some kind of insight onto the next door to open. Our life is like an onion, just layer after layer after layer that we're peeling away, and pursuing a spiritual path is the same thing. I have learned to let go and just to sit back and let it all happen and not resist it. That has been the best thing that I've learned through this process. Is I don't navigate it. I just kind of let everything unfold for me as my life goes on. Try not to worry, try not to get too much in my head or analytical about this stuff. I just let it happen organically. I just go with it.
Hey everyone, that concludes part 2 of the interview with shamanic practitioner Alvaro Romao. In future parts, we talk a lot more about how the average person out there can incorporate these kinds of practices into their lives and discuss deeper experiences. If you would like to learn more about Alvaro Romao, check out his website, njshaman.com. If you would like to join in on the discussion, find our Facebook group, The Conscious Vibe Tribe, and feel free to join in. Also, look up The Conscious Vibe on YouTube and SoundCloud. And if you would like to join us to talk, or anything really, feel free to shoot me an email. Until then, stay conscious.